Today's topic is never enough and not truly happy. Do you guys know what they celebrated in Korea during this past week? It was Chinese New Year's. And back when I lived in Korea, the Chinese New Year's used to be my favorite holiday of all, even more than Christmas. Do you know why? 세뱃돈이요. 우리 if you go through the holiday in Korea, it's the tradition is that the kids will generally bow down to the adults and they will pass out money. Think about it this way: during Christmas, you get gifts, and during the Chinese New Year's, you get cash, and cash is king. So I always loved the Chinese New Year's even better than Christmas. Shame to me. And I remember, this was like back 20, 25, 30 years ago. And I remember getting almost $100, which is a lot of money, especially in Korea like 25 years ago, right? It's a lot of money. And I was just so happy to have such a large amount of money. And this is what my mom told me every year. She told me that she is like a bank and I can give my money to her, and she is going to make sure that whenever I wanted to buy something, since she is the bank, she is going to withdraw the money for me and she is going to let me buy the things that I wanted to buy. And she turned out to be a really lousy bank. My mom didn't keep her promise, and she didn't really let me buy anything with the money. And the money always disappears somewhere, and I don't know where that money went. Even when I was young, I had this thought in my head that if I can have the $100 to myself, I would be so happy. I can buy whatever I want. I can buy my friends whatever they wanted, and I will still have so much left over. And in my head, there is this equation that goes like lots of money, about $100 equals happiness. That equation was in my head, and that's why I love the Chinese New Year's. If money can bring happiness, then the richest people on earth should be the most happy people, right? But I thought about the richest people in this world, and in the past recent years, I remember two billionaires and multi-billionaires whose lives didn't really turn out very well. And I felt bad for putting their pictures up, but I guess they're public figures, so it's okay. He's the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and he has many kids. And Jeff Bezos and his wife recently they decided they don't want to be together as a family, and they wanted to split. And next family, Bill Gates, he's the founder of Microsoft, and his family also decided that they don't want to become one family. And if money can truly buy happiness, why is it that sometimes the richest people do not end up being the happiest people on earth? In fact, I think too much money brought them even more trouble. And when I was looking at the pictures of the children of the couple, I couldn't help myself imagine that what do I think they would want? Do they want the rich life? Do they want the extravagance of life, all the luxuries, or do they want having the family together? I can't speak for themselves, but if it was up to me, rather than being super rich, I would much rather want my family to be together and happy. And let's read what Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 10 tells us about the relationship between happiness and money. Let's read it together. Those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. How much is going to be enough? Let's imagine that you get $100 for your Chinese New Year's, and is that going to be enough? When you have $100, you are going to, this is what I found out when I went to school and talked to my friends, thinking that I received so much money. I always found my friends who got more money than I did. They got $150 and $200, and all of a sudden, my heart is not satisfied. How much is going to be enough? And do you know what determines how much is going to be enough? It's our hearts. And there's this thing in our hearts called greed. 한국말로 욕심이라고 해요. And that greed is so big and it can set its standards so high that no human being can match what greed is going to require. So many people think that wealth is going to bring true happiness, but this verse says, those who love money, those who love money have greed in their hearts, and they will never have enough. I feel like happiness is in a way, mathematical way of thinking about it is if you have your greed, your desire, right, and you have what you have, and there's the difference, right? Even though you can make so much more money, if your greed goes up, you become unhappy, and that's what this verse is talking about. It says how meaningless it is to think that wealth brings true happiness. And I want you guys to pay attention to the word true happiness, not just happiness, but true happiness. During the announcement today, we talked about the people from Myanmar who had to flee to Thailand, and they are literally living in the mountains without any basic things that they need for life, such as food or shelter. And we're asking you to pray for these people. When you love money, you have greed, and you turn your blind eye on the people whom you can bless and use the money for good purposes. You are not to love the money, right? If you love money, it's not going to bring you true happiness, but you are to spend it. You are to use it for good purposes, for the purposes of God, and that's when you can utilize money to bring happiness in the way that God is pleased in us. Let's read verse 15. Let's read it together. We all come to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed as the day we were born. We can't take our riches with us. No matter how rich you are, no matter what kind of cool stuff you have, we are born into this world naked, and we leave this world naked. And I really thought about this idea of the gospel message. God gave us the gospel message, and he didn't charge a price for it. It says, here is the gospel message. If you believe in the message, you can have salvation, and you have the assurance of my love and my heart for you, and you no longer have to live as a slave to sin, as a slave to money or any desires. You can now be set free to truly live the life that I want you to live. And I thought about this relationship between money and the true happiness. These days, I'm slowly gaining weight. I don't know if you have noticed or not, but compared to my younger version of myself, I think I gained about 20 to 25 pounds. And I kind of thought about the idea of gaining weight to this relationship with money and happiness, right? We want to increase our happiness. Likewise, I want to increase my health. And in order for me to increase my health, my weight cannot just keep going up, right? Because at some point it's going to be really bad for me. In order for me to maintain my weight, I have to watch on what I eat. If I love food too much, then it's not going to be good for my health. Likewise, in order for me to maintain my health, I have to exercise. I have to sort of, use up what I have eaten. And I think with happiness, works the same way. If you love money, it's not going to be good for your happiness. And the way that you can be truly happy in God is when you use the money for God's purposes. There is this song that I really like. It's called God of Justice. Kind of goes like this. God of justice, Savior to all, came to rescue the weak and the poor, came to serve and not be served. Jesus, You have called us. Freely we receive now. Freely we will give. And the verse that really caught my attention was this part where freely we've received now, and freely we will give. Everything that we have received for free, right? And the gospel message that saved us, we received it for free. It's not cheap, but we received it for free. And that gospel message, when it's in us, it's asking us a question. What are you going to do with the gospel message? You have freely received, and now are you going to freely give? That's the question that the gospel message is asking us. And it applies to our relationships, applies to money and how we live our lives and what we do with the things that we have. It's asking us, do you recognize that you have freely received it and you are to freely give it? But how does it feel when you give? You don't want to freely give it, right? I didn't want to give my $100 to anyone else, and I just wanted to use it for myself. But as we train ourselves in righteousness in our faith, our gospel message is asking us, freely you have received now, and freely give, and that's the way that you are going to live according to the Bible. Again, it's not cheap, but you have received it. You have not really earned for it. Another word for grace in the Bible is a gift. It's a gift from God. And freely we have received now, and let's freely give, and let's train ourselves in giving to God and using our money for good purposes according to God's will.